What's your title?
Senior technology.
Yes. So he is the go-to. Yes, you'll all have his card. And he is the go-to for questions, very responsive. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about why you should use the iClicker in the classroom. Doesn't matter what type of course you have, but why it can actually be useful for you in getting students engaged, how it benefits your students. And then we're also going to look at, as we go, I think one of the big questions is why or how can I use it to actually do good, not just engagement, but higher level thinking skills. And I think that's a very important question and one that we actually do address because it's important. And then we're going to talk about the logistics and what you need to do as the instructor and setup and that sort of thing. So let me, first of all, from my perspective, putting your mind at ease. This is really easy to use. There is a little bit of setup in the beginning, but that's what Glenn is for. That's why we have so many resources for all of you to be able to do this. This does save you time, especially if you're using it for attendance. It's an automatic attendance check, but it's also a participation check as well as learning and engagement check. So you're doing a lot of things at once for you, especially for large numbers of students. I think this is really key. If you've heard about Top Hat is something that is actually put into the lecture slides themselves. This does not. It runs concurrently. You don't have to change anything with your slides. So you're not having to worry about making adjustments in PowerPoint. It automatically, with one click, and we'll show you this in a second, goes directly into Blackboard. It uploads all of those grades to you automatically. It's already integrated, so that's also very important. And as I said, Glenn and iClicker in general, support team are very helpful, responsive. You'll get if you email them, you'll hear back from them within an hour at the most, really. And then this cost, as Glenn was mentioning, they only have to buy this once. And so they don't have to keep purchasing a subscription unless they use the mobile device. But for just the clicker, they don't have to purchase a subscription every year. Once they have it forever. And some of the other platforms online are semester subscription services. So that's another consideration. So one of the things, of course, you can ask knowledge of facts. But again, that's what we want to do that, but we also want to try and get away from that a little bit. You also can ask comprehension. So like you have a statement, which one supports this theory, or which of these is an example of something. But really what I have used it a lot for is whether students know something that you expect them to know and may not know. For example, with marine science or geology, how many of them know what plate tectonics is versus continental drift, stuff like that. Some major concepts that you think they come in knowing and they don't. So you have to change perhaps how you structure your classes. So what you can do with Clicker, which I think is just wonderful, is being able to get students to see the knowledge that they're learning in the class that you've been lecturing on or they've been working on, having them put it in situations where they're actually going to see it on exam, in problem sets, in real life, applying it in situations that they will actually experience. So one of the best ways of doing this is using questions where they have to remember what they just learned and then apply it in a new situation, called Memory Plus types of questions. And so what those questions can do is they can ask, why is it important to be able to do this, or why might we want to do this? Predicting and showing so they know something's supposed to happen. Well, let's put it in a different scenario. What happens if we do it this way? Or things that you have to factor in and consider in certain situations.
So a couple of things that if you're going to use iClicker, first of all, you need to let the bookstore know. These don't magically appear in the bookstore, although they are not specific to any particular course or discipline on campus. The bookstore needs to know just so they can allocate appropriately. A couple of things, walk across here and grab this. I showed this one. This was the first, some of you may have seen this. This was the first iClicker that we ever produced with part of Macmillan. This was back in 2006, and we quit producing these in 2010, replaced it with an updated model. The thing I will say is if the device works, it will still work with our software. So we've talked about that. All I need to know is where you want your instructor kit shipped. I mean, that it can be some departments, some like them to come to the department, others not so much, because you get over on where you are. I still don't know the name of the buildings, when I've left one and when I've entered another one. So the home address works better. That's perfectly fine as well. This is key. I would tell you, if you go to iClicker.com, you can download our software, but that's not the customized version for South Carolina. This is where you want to go to download the version that allows you to interact with Blackboard. There's a Mac version, there's a Windows version here. I will also tell you, is there anybody that crosses platforms, i.e. you lecture from a podium computer, which is probably Windows, but in your office you use a Mac? Okay. If that becomes an issue, we have a cross-platform version which lets you, it makes the transition for you. And then as far as syncing, the interaction with Blackboard lets you do a couple things. We've talked about pushing the grades over, but it also lets you download your roster from Blackboard. When you set your course up, essentially what you do, you log into Blackboard, you give the okay for Blackboard to communicate and to pass information to iClicker, then you can download your roster. So what that means is, after the last day to drop a class, you can download a fresh copy of your roster. After the last day to add a class, once drop had's over with, all of the dropping and adding happens at the Blackboard level. So you don't have to go in individually and say, well, this student's not here anymore, this student's not here anymore, add this student. So that all happens for you at the Blackboard level. So that's why I really encourage, it just simplifies things considerably using the integrated version. So if I want to create a course, I'm going to close my session. So what you're seeing here, I've got these are the courses that I've used for other things. The USC CTE is the course that we were just questioning from. But if I want to create a new course, it's going to simply clicking create. I'll name this. I'm going to create it. So theoretically, it's created and I could launch it now. But this is when I would jump over into settings. And I would say, okay, I need to set my scoring. I need to come over here to general. My Blue Remote has an 8-character code as well. If I wanted this to work to run this program, I need to put that number right here where it says Instructor Remote ID. If I did want to enable mobile, I would come here. Again, the way iClicker Classic is set up is if you don't enable mobile at this tab, then the student cannot use a mobile device in the classroom. That puts you in control of what device is or is not being used in your classroom. So, and then the grade book, this is where I would come in and I would download my roster by simply logging into Blackboard and then selecting my course and pulling that roster down. So really in, just a matter of just a couple of seconds, it does not take long. Once you have the software downloaded, it's a pretty quick process to start and run a course.
In your syllabus and discussing in class, you do need to do this. You need to let students know how to buy it, where to buy it, because you would think they would know to go to the bookstore, but they don't. And how you actually set it up and register it, include in your syllabus information about which devices are supposed to use, if they can or can't use the mobile. As I said, how to register. This is what I put in my first slide, and then I have repeat it through the first week. It's required. This is the model. You have to register it. Be ready for the first real question on this date. Bring your clicker every day. And then I show them where they go in Blackboard to go register it and find the number. I'm very explicit about this. Make sure you talk about what the expectations are, how often they're used, that they're responsible for battery life, all of that. And then why you use them, showing them that you value this because it is a good learning tool. It's important to be what we call transparent. This is why I'm doing it. This is what you're going to do. This is how it's going to help you. So talk about that on your syllabus and with the students.
And Michelle, go back one thing. The thing I would say here about two things here: the daily use or random. If you don't use your iClicker, if you're going to use iClicker but you only use it randomly, you should not be surprised as an instructor when half your students don't have them. That day you do decide to use them. So if you're going to use iClicker, use iClicker. You're training a behavior.